You can be doing good things, making good money, and yet somewhere inside yourself, it just doesn't feel right.
What does living the dream actually mean to you now?
Purpose, I've found, is uniquely driven by our core values and our strengths and our attributes. Because as you and I talked a little bit about, is a lot of our youth are suffering right now.
What was the moment where you realized that I can't keep doing this?
I was actually standing next to my CEO, and somewhere deep inside me wasn't a voice, but it was almost an audible that said, I don't want you here. We don't believe, nor does society, that all students should go to college or university. There are so many different paths to a great career, a great purpose in life. As I age, this is where I'm going to spend more and more of my time, is really helping the people that have incredible skills. They just don't have the financials to get where they want to go.
Welcome to Live the Dream podcast, where we bring you thought-provoking conversations with innovators, visionary founders, and business leaders shaping the future of the coaching industry. I'm your host, Harinder Mullay, owner of Oryx AI Solutions, where we help businesses use intelligent systems and AI-driven solutions to scale with more clarity, efficiency, and impact. On this podcast, we go beyond the highlight reel to explore the mindset, strategy, and leadership behind real success. My guest today is the co-founder of Discover Pathwaze, a college planning and career development business based in Louisville, Colorado, helping young adults, especially those aged between 14 and 26, discover their gifts, talents, strengths, education pathways, and career direction. Discover Pathwaze works with families through college selection, applications, major confirmation, career services, interview prep, and career launch support. Mary brings a fascinating background from IBM, where she spent many years in consulting, global team leadership, employee development, sales, and leadership in business. In our prep call, she shared how that corporate experience became the building blocks for the work she does now with young people. So without further ado, Mary Kolbenschlag. Welcome to the podcast today, Mary.
Thank you, Harinder. It's so fun to be here with you today.
It's fun to have you on. It's been a pleasure speaking on our prep call that we did last week. And I'm so excited to continue the conversations that we had last week, because you're doing fabulous work helping young people. Do you mind just telling the audience a bit about yourself in your way and what you do?
I live right outside of Boulder, Colorado in the United States. And before that, I grew up in New Mexico, which is also a part of the United States, and came up here to work for IBM. I have two sons who are grown, 34 and 29, and a husband and a beautiful dog that I spend a lot of time hiking with, about 7 minutes from the mountains. And so I spend a lot of time hiking and exploring when I'm not working and supporting families and young adults. Thanks.
Well, you do amazing work. And as the theme of this episode is Live the Dream, but from our conversation, I got the sense that your work is partly challenging the dream that society hands to young people, the college, the degree, job titles, status, versions of success. When you think about young people and families that you work with, what does living the dream actually mean to you now?
I think, like so many young people, I thought living the dream was what was scripted out in society and in culture. And what I found out is you can be doing good things, making good money, and getting the praise of society, and yet somewhere inside yourself, it just doesn't feel right. And it was that process that I went through, and seeing a lot of my friends, a lot of moms, a lot of business people go through it, and thinking, okay, what really are the attributes of living your dream, and how do you get there? And it was through kind of that life struggle with myself, and especially watching my boys, feeling like there was a lot more support out there for them. There just frankly wasn't, or they were getting a lot of different messages, especially in the advent of social media, right? When I was growing up, we didn't have that, but still there was a message. And that purpose, I found, is uniquely driven by our core values and our strengths and our attributes that we have been gifted with and born with. And then as we grow and nurture over time, and it's really discovering those. And yeah, it's such a fun and exciting and beautiful process, especially with this age group. Because as you and I talked a little bit about on our prep call, is a lot of our youth are suffering right now, and a lot of our families are suffering watching our youth suffer. And so it was that ignited it in me to really say, is there something I can do with my background in seeing business globally and seeing professionals that are incredible? I probably work with some of the best and brightest professionals. I mean, talk about walking in a room and always feeling like you're not the smartest person. Truly, when I was at IBM, and I don't say that to diminish myself. It just people were in their gifted space most of the time, and I thought, okay, there's something to this, and what is it? So, yeah, that's it.
Thank you for sharing that. I mean, there's so many things I want to unpack there, but I'll start with, because you were working, the IBM, leadership to, purpose-led work, and you were like leading teams like what, globally, across countries, developing people, later feeling that, work had become, in your words that you mentioned, like soul sucking. And like you said, you wanted to invigorate people and grow them,
Right.
but that role had shifted away from that. So what was the moment where you realized that I can't keep doing this? Like, I need something with purpose.
I haven't told very many people this, but I was actually standing next to my CEO, Ginny Rometty, the first female CEO of IBM in 100 years. And I was being recognized for my leadership. They had put together a program of 50 leaders globally, of which I was one. And she was talking about something I had been doing. And I thought, oh my goodness, I have arrived. Like, this is it. Like, I could not think of anything better than standing next to, again, my female CEO, because you need to be able to see what you want to be. And so me standing next to this extremely intelligent, incredible woman was the highlight of my life. And somewhere deep inside me, it wasn't a voice, but it was almost an audible that said, I don't want you here. And I literally was standing there. And then I thought to myself, did I just, and I started arguing in my head, and I thought, okay, this is strange. Not to say we don't get messages from other places and intuitions, or even if you are a faithful person that you believe you get something from somewhere else. But it stopped me in my tracks. So as I was walking back to the IBM dorms in headquarters, which is where we were staying, I just really wrestled with it. And I do have a faith. And I said, okay, if this is not where you want me, where is it I'm supposed to be? And to be frank, it was about a 5-year process for me to deconstruct what I was doing, because that job role I was in had a tremendous amount of visibility and success, because that job role was growing individuals worldwide in emerging countries. And I thought that it was everything that I ever wanted. And if you cut parallel my personal life, my boys were going through high school, struggling with entering into, the grown-up world, unsure of what they wanted to do. So as a mother, I felt this really big tug, and I traveled a lot for my position. And so I just started to feel this unearthing underneath. To be honest, the ground wasn't as strong as it had been for 20 some years. I mean, I think they say that when you're in the right place at the right time, you just feel it and it's organic and you go with the flow. And for so many decades, I felt that. But for the first time in my life, I didn't. And it was really, really difficult. And so because of that, I just started to say, okay, what is there for me? Where am I supposed to be? What am I supposed to do? Because it was so comfortable doing what I was good at and doing what society says is important, and honestly getting the pay that's associated with that. So to give it up or to start searching for something elsewhere was really hard. But I'll be honest with you, the tension that I felt was so untenable that I just couldn't ignore it, right? They say that you get the whisper, you get the nudge, and then sometimes you get the brick on the head when you need to shift. And I think I can honestly say, Harinder, that I got the brick. I mean, there were just some things in my personal life that started shifting that I thought, okay, I'm not supposed to be doing this anymore. So, yeah, thank you for asking. I don't normally share that, but I do think a lot of people that transition in life absolutely start feeling that and they don't know what to do with that feeling. So I feel like if I'm being honest and vulnerable, that is more the norm than it is the exception to start feeling that you're just not in the right place anymore. But what do you do with that? And that was really my personal story of starting to shift.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that, Mary. I can appreciate that as you're feeling like vulnerable sharing that story where you haven't shared with many other people. And it sounds amazing that you're like a global leader, like in IBM, like to be in that position and a female and the first female CEO as well alongside her. I mean, to many people, like you said as well, it's like corporate America. This is the dream. This is like kind of where it's at. This is where you get the money, get the travel, everything. But then there's this something tugging at you that like, no, I'm a mother. I've got this. I'm unearthing. I like the way how you articulated that. It's such a interesting way of describing how you're feeling. Like you're not grounded. You're out and about, and you're not. Something's just not right. And so, are you able to talk a bit more about then what happened to then?
Yeah.
You leaving IBM and then you also, I guess, setting up your current project that you're
Yeah, for sure. So through that process, what transpired was I took a leave of absence because I thought, I really don't know if this is permanent. So I ended up taking a leave and then that leave extended for a longer period of time. And then I actually went back when cognitive computing and AI was more in its infancy. I mean, it really wasn't before IBM, it was. And I went back to help a group. We had acquired a company and I was trying to help them get situated as IBMers, this team. And still, it was just nagging at me. So I ended up thinking, you know what, I'm just going to leave. And I was able to take a break and really do some soul searching, just some time of who am I? After 25 years of leading large teams, traveling, doing large sales deals, I didn't know who I was anymore. So part of it was my personal discovery of what do I like to do? Who am I? Now I'm going to be an empty nester. What is it that that I'm all about? And so that part of that was that discovery. And in that, one of my closest friends said, do you want to, because I was telling her, Mary, my now business partner, another Mary, she said, I know you love helping young adults. And she said, would you mind volunteering at our local high school in what we call the post-grad center, which is what are you going to do after high school? And it was a group of volunteer moms who went in and helped high schoolers. It's a very large high school. And to give you an example, in the United States, if you're lucky enough to have high school counselors that help lead students, the average of high school counselors is 400 students to every one counselor. So you can only imagine the amount of personal time or lack of personal time that these students get with their high school counselors in order to plan out what is it they should be studying away at university, how to do it, are they equipped, do they have the grades, do they have the money? I mean, all of that. Normally it's around a 15 to 20 minute meeting that you have with your high school counselors each year. And that is for the schools that are lucky, right? There are some schools that it's 800 kids to one high school counselor. Some don't even have high school counselors. And with the budget cuts currently in the Department of Education, honestly, it's getting even worse. We saw it at our local high schools, and we are a very affluent area, right? So if it's being cut in our area, you can only imagine the areas of the United States where there is less money for the public school system. All of that to say, a group of us moms who were very invested in what our kids did and where they were going volunteered. And my boys were graduated, but I decided to volunteer, and I went and volunteered. And Harinder, I found, because, see, I've been working with adults and not just adults that really were top in their careers, right? Technically, business people, I mean, just everything. And so I'm going into this high school and I'm with these 14 to 18-year-olds, and I literally fell in love with the kids. I wanted so much to understand what made them tick. I didn't used to think I liked per se on young adults. I know that sounds weird, but I mean, as a mom, I liked my kids, but I just was never around young adults. And I worked so much. And so I was around these young adults and I thought, man, you're amazing. And they just, the things they would say and the things they would do. And I was able to see their strengths. I think because I was so honed in on looking at what skills people brought to the marketplace, I thought, ooh, I can pick out what your strength is, and I can pick out what things you gravitate to, and I can pick out things that you're in the flow when you do this. And so with that excitement, they'd get excited, and then I'd get excited, and then I would help them through the process. And I loved it. And I thought, okay, I think I want to do this as a career, but I didn't know this was a career. And my friend Mary said she was in her college counseling program at UCLA. And she said, you do know that there's a career doing this with, leading young adults. And I said, I wasn't, because I didn't hire anyone to help my boys, nor did I know people that did that. And so I also went through the program at UCLA Extension. It is a certificate program that is specifically designed to help kids get through the college admissions. So I didn't have to take classes that didn't have anything to do with anything else. I just took classes that, how do you fill out financial aid forms? How do you select colleges? The very nuts and bolts of it. And I loved it. I loved the program. I was so invested. And so we decided to start the company. And this is almost 10 years ago. And what was so awesome is normally, and I shared this in our prep call, that I'd say 90% of people that do the job I do it as solopreneurs all by themselves, which I feel like is a very lonely thing to do because it is so interpersonal. And there's 4 of us on the team, 5 if you count our essay expert, and because she comes in at just certain points of the year. But the amount of interaction that we have, it's all women. It's a women-owned, women-led, and women, participation company. But not to say there's not great men out there that do what we do. It's just, it so happened that we got together. And so, yeah, we do it as a team. And I think the ideas we come up with are better because each of our past experiences with families lead to solutions for our new families. Sometimes when I'm at a roadblock and I can't understand how to work with a family or get through to them, or I'm at an obstacle technically, because we each have our own specialty areas. Some are financial, some are career. Mine's career driven. Then we can layer our services on top of each other for our families. I feel like families just get a better service because of that. So yeah, that's a little bit about that.
I love that. I mean, firstly, you could hear, I'm so glad like you just shared that journey because you could hear the passion and the freedom that came out of your voice when you mentioned about seeing these young adults like just being amazing. Like you just probably were so like busy with work that you didn't even get a chance to maybe do that, right? And not many people would. And I think that's so important because they are the future, they are the next generation. And with like the cuts going on now and obviously geopolitics and the way things are, they probably need support from adults more than ever to find some sort of guidance, some sort of strength, some sort of just even basic things you mentioned, isn't it? Just filling out forms, just like how do you fill out the right forms in the right way to make sure it's like, beneficial to you. And I think that way you mentioned that you're all a women-led business as beautiful. Like there needs to be more of that, I feel. And I feel like there's probably not enough. And this is why we'll hope that people are women who watch this podcast are inspired by you and what you've done with your friends and colleagues, because it's beautiful. It's not just you just working with random people, you're working with people, isn't it? Like your
Right.
friend is Mary and like the whole support network that you're working with and other colleagues. are kind of from your mother's group. And I think there's nothing more beautiful than like sort of mothers coming together and kind of nurturing the younger generation, because they have, you, I guess, like naturally kind of have that skill and ability maybe the men don't have as much. And I think it's such a beautiful thing, and the work that you're doing is phenomenal. Would you mind just sharing a little bit more about like day to day, or what
Yeah.
goes on in the office, and how you sort of
Yeah.
come to make decisions and grow your company?
One of the services we provide, and we really believe very wholeheartedly, I laugh and tell people if I were to do one thing for the rest of my life, I'd probably do this discovery phase, which is really helping a student and their family, their parents, right? Parents have seen their children grow up and they have a narrative about their child and their child's strengths. And then they layer it with their expectations and what they would like for their child. And so for me, what's really fun and the team is to discover who who the child really is, who the young adult really is. What are their strengths? What are their strengths cognitively, emotionally, and interest, right? We know that combination because people will say, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And I struggle with that because sometimes what you love to do isn't really what you're cognitively able to do, right? You may like it. You know, you talked about being an artist. I have a son that's an artist, and there's some real challenges with being a career artist, right? And so at the end of the day, the combination I feel, and I think the science says it, with your cognitive behaviors and your interests all wrapped around help really lead you along with your values to the right career. And so day to day, what we do is we get families that we are a word of mouth company. We feel our best references are families that we've helped in the past. And at the end of the day, that was a decision we made overtly to really work with families that know and understand and appreciate what we do. And so we have this amazing discovery phase. And in that, you mentioned people being let go in business. In our discovery phase, once you have connected with some careers that you feel you like to learn more about, we have a network of professionals. Again, they're just people in the community that we know. They are neighbors. They are prior parents. They are students that have gone before with us and they've now gone into the career, and we connect these new young adults with them, and we ask them to do shadowing or informational interviews. And these people in the community, it's amazing when you ask community members to, let's say, my next door neighbor is an engineer. He has talked to more of my students because his path is really cool about what a career in engineering looks like. And at the end of the day, those young adults get a network of professionals that are for them and with them, and then can help them along the way, like help them with their resumes later on, help them with job interviews, help them with their first job, open doors for them. Those are the things that we know as adults are critical, but getting a young adult to pick up the phone or email somebody and ask them to shadow them is almost impossible. So because it's part of the process, we're like, yeah, these are the 5 people you need to talk to, and we're going to help you do that. And then we connect them to the point where they feel comfortable. And we know, because you and I are on the other side, that that is going to lead them to success, that human to human connection, not the who you are on paper, right? And so that's just one of the things. And I say that as far as like what my goals and my passions are, because having the ability and the trust of parents to sit with your child and allow me to speak into this is what their strengths are, and have the students light up and then the parents affirm it. Yeah, I've always known that about my son or my daughter, but I just didn't realize is very powerful. Because Harinder, at this age, I mean, my boys didn't listen to me. Let's be honest. I'm their mom. Even today, when I try to give them career advice, they're like, "Mom," and I'm like, "Oh my goodness, I do this for a career. Can you not, listen to me?" But that's the way it works, right? When they say it takes a village to, I'm everybody's favorite aunt, that knows a little bit about something. And to your point, I think that we've kind of lost it. And then the rest of our services are very, what I call, I don't say rote, but here's the deal. University and college is a train that you get on, and you can get on it early, but it all stops at the same place, right? It's usually your senior year. It's usually, you've got to have made these decisions. We get some students their senior year and they're freaked out. We get students in 8th grade, right? And so at the end of the day, you have all these things that get compressed into a timeline, and we really just work through the nuts and bolts of how do you choose a university? How do you choose a major or a course, a degree, whatever you call it, wherever you're at? What's the application like? And all of that is really project management. At the end of the day, it's all project management. But I do want to say one thing. We don't believe, nor does society, that all students should go to college or university. We don't. Some people say 50% should not. It is not worthwhile for them, or it's not worthwhile for society to be given the services that they need. They should be doing things that don't require a degree or a course. They should be doing things that require a trade or some type of volunteer or some type of work experience. But at the end of the day, we give families who believe that college is the only path to a good career the insight to say, no, there are so many different paths to a great career, a great purpose in life. So let's look at those and let's explore them in a very curious way and not fear. And that when that happens, Harinder, because it's not a majority of the students, it's really powerful because those students believed that they were being left behind and a college or university was their only path. And to see them ingest that it's not is just a really incredible thing, because then they can step into that path and not feel bad about themselves. And that's super powerful.
I think that's it's phenomenal. I was going to say, firstly, there's so many things I wanted to mention there. So, firstly, about all mums don't get listened to by their kids is, I think, is a common global situation, including my 4-year-old who doesn't listen to his mum. And it's like you said, kind of like takes a village to raise a child. Such a beautiful saying, and I think it's so important. And it is so true, because it really does. Like you've got such an amazing network, like using your neighbors and people to help volunteer to interview practice and everything. I think that's phenomenal. And the other thing of where you're catering for the child's cognitive behavior or understanding. They might be good at something, but would they be or they might really enjoy something, but would they be good at doing it, or would they be fit into the education system to continue doing that? And I think that's such a key distinction of like not just giving everyone a degree or like go into college or to do a course. And I was actually going to say, where you mentioned trades and other sort of services that might suit them better. That's phenomenal. And I was actually going to go like the next step. My question was going to be like, what about business? Do you ever educate them on business or empower them to maybe even run their own business? Because some might even be quite entrepreneurial or even like a coaching or like, do you ever suggest anything like that?
Yes. Yeah. Because it is my sphere of influence and my story, I can talk to them about what it looks like to work in a corporation, an amazing corporation, right? I got so many things that many people will never experience. And I really felt this huge responsibility to share what I had, the 25 years that I got, and to integrate it back into what does it look like to own your own business? What attributes of my corporate career did I want to take with me to create my own company? They say it, and this as an entrepreneur, you do everything, right? And even if with the four of us, there's still so much different work, from running the business to what are your services, what are your products and services, the marketing, the business. It's a lot, and how you parse your time out can be very overwhelming. I think that, yeah, I definitely talk to students because there's a lot of students now that go into entrepreneurship programs. They actually have a course or degrees now that are very specific. And then we look at the classes and go, are they really entrepreneurial classes that or courses that they're taking? Or are they just really marketing, accounting, finance? But and every university is different on that. And so understanding what does it take to run your own business, and honestly, do you have it in you to be what we call more of a generalist, right? Specialists are people that I always tell my students, a specialist is like a programmer or a heart doctor. A generalist is more of like an ER doctor. Anybody can come into the ER, right? They can be having a baby, they can be having a heart attack. And at the end of the day, people that are usually more tuned to be an entrepreneur are specialists because they say, I have this thing I want to sell, right? It's a service or it's a product. And I know a lot about it and the market needs it. And the person that is usually best suited to run an entrepreneurial company is a generalist because they can do all the different things that needs to be done. So right there you have a conflict, and you either need to, as a specialist, get very general about how to do all of this stuff, or you have to hire that out. But at the end of the day, when we see students, and we usually can see which they are, do they tend to be more generalist or specialist, and they want to be an entrepreneur, I sit back and I talk to them knowing what their deficit will probably be and say, well, how would you do this? If you had to do this, 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 and this, and yet you're a specialist, how would you do that? Then you see their eyes open and they say, okay, well, maybe I need to find somebody to help me, or maybe I need to rethink this. And it's not to say I discourage them from being an entrepreneur, but as you know, being an entrepreneur never ends. And it never ends. In my old job, my job theoretically would end at the end of the night. Although when you manage global teams, it doesn't really end. But theoretically, you have a job role and you have a skill set for that job role. But when you're an entrepreneur, you're like, oh, did I send that invoice? How's my social media, SEO doing? Is my client happy? Should I spend more time trying to just satisfy my client? It's a lot. It's a lot. And so you just want to make sure that you're really up for that.
I think it's really important to prepare them as you're doing. I think definitely it's a hard slog, and if you can kind of at least build that into them initially, I feel that will at least help them. They may not listen, but I think it's definitely a great idea to just tell them this is a struggle. This is not like there's so much marketing and promotion of like, no, you can live your ultimate dream and live in like, on the beach, sit on the beach on your laptop and a phone and internet connection, and you can make a million, six figures and stuff. Like this is a common thing that we see, right, with a lot of influencers and whatnot. But to build home and bring home the reality, I think is very important. But I'm glad that you do that, and it's still, I feel like it's good to still give kids an option, like to say that, okay, this business, there's something different available. But the process that you have of like kind of finding out actually cognitively, would this work for them? Would this be suited for them? I think that's phenomenal. And I'd love to know a little bit more about kind of what happens in that process when you're finding out how they're best suited to something. If you could, in just a few words, how would you explain that?
Along with the cognitive process is behavioral attributes. And there are some people that are more suited to what I call outreach. They just, their personality is, I want to make a network of friends. I don't have an issue going out and putting myself out there. And then there are people that, again, are very inward. It's not to say one is good or bad. It's just, as an entrepreneur, it's your cognitive and it's your personality traits or your behavioral traits that will suit you for specific jobs and roles. And Harinder, if you don't match, I mean, there's these students that are like, they'll have something that I consider, and I would never say this to them, more of a red flag, but I'll say, how would you feel if you were in this situation knowing your personality or your behavioral traits with overcoming it, because this is a big part of overcoming it in entrepreneurship, like reaching out, like what you and I are doing. Some people would really struggle with what we're doing right now. My personality is such that I just put myself out there, right? And at the end of the day, you're right. It really is based on a lot of them. And then it's honing those skills. And some skills are easier to hone, and some skills are more hardwired in you. And knowing that, it all goes back to me to discover who you are and then what you need to do to get where you want to be.
I love how you're equipping the younger generation with just their understanding, first of all, then with the skills later on, like connecting them with the relevant skills and pathways that are suited best to them. You mentioned a bit more about like actually, how businesses are and like how difficult it can be when you're like the marketer, the accountant, you're the strategist. What sort of would you say is the biggest challenge you're going through right now as running a business? You're doing amazing work. You've got 4, potentially 5 sort of employees. What still would you say is like the hardest thing or the most challenging thing?
I think in our area, it is knowing where to grow and where to not grow. We've had several people come to us with wanting to expand our business, replicate our process, and how we perform our services, because we do it uniquely. I mean, based off of the 90% do it differently than we do. And at the end of the day, we really have to go inward and ask ourselves, what is it that we're trying to do? We are trying to reach young people and, shore them up with their future and their careers, as well as their family who have a vested interest. What is the population that we want to affect? And so at the end of the day, those two collide. And so we're constantly saying, when we're at 4, we can control a lot of the variables. If we were to, let's say, franchise, or we were to go out and expand, how would we assure quality of services, right? How would we assure that? Because when you grow and expand, and we've seen it time and time again, quality will often get put second place to profit. And although we make a good living doing what we do, profit is not our motivator. We pour back a lot of money into the company, as well as, and I mentioned this to you, our nonprofit. Mary and I support our nonprofit financially, and it is extremely important to us to be able to provide our same services to people that would not be able to financially afford us. And we do it with a little bit different focus, which is instead of one-on-one with a student, we do it in group settings so that we have way more impact from a numbers standpoint. And then we also know when we leave, they have each other and they can use each other, these students and these advocates, because we work with advocate programs like community colleges and organizations that help, migrant, immigrant, marginalized financial students. And at the end of the day, it really is looking at what impact do we want to make on society and how to best get there. And between you and I and everybody listening, it is a daily check-in, right? Every day we check in, and because there's 4 of us, we're constantly asking each other, what is it we want to do? How do we want to do it? And we are again in this phase of, we do it about every 2 to 3 years, where we are doing a social media cleanse, and we are doing a what's changed in the world by way of marketing and SEO, and working with our website consultants and strategists and say, okay, do we want to yet again do another uplift of that, and what does that look like, and what amount of our personal time is it going to take away from our clients to do it? And it's just always it will happen until we close the doors that we will be doing this.
What's your heart telling you to do? Because it seems like there was something intuitive or something that was beyond your own maybe intellect or your situation that got you out of IBM. And whatever you want to call it, I'm sure people can brand it or name it, label it what they want. But what do you think internally is telling you? Like, what would be the most thing to do based on what your heart may be telling you?
So I mentioned a little bit. I grew up in New Mexico, which is a border city in the United States to Mexico. It's extremely diverse with Native American, Hispanic, and Caucasian individuals who have lived together for hundreds of years, right? And at the end of the day, because it's where I grew up and how I grew up, I have a natural tendency to want to help bring up that generation of multicultural, multi-ethnicity student population. And so that is probably the best way for me to dive into that. What is my heart, soul, whatever, is just to continue focusing there. And as I am getting older, and I am older, I want so much to participate in that. As a quick side note, I went to Regis University's graduation this weekend. It was my son's girlfriend's master's. And sitting there for 3 hours, listening to the speakers. It is a Jesuit, which is an offshoot of Catholicism university. They are extremely supportive of their mission and vision, which is to be multicultural, diverse, all this stuff. And that, Harinder, I just sat there and I thought, this is my jam. These are my people, right? And I may not look like them at the end of the day, but it's who I am. And I thought, okay, as I age, this is where I'm going to spend more and more of my time, is really helping the people that have incredible skills. They just don't have the financials to get where they want to go.
I think that's fantastic work that you're doing, Mary. And the fact that you're supporting those disadvantaged communities out there. And we're going to talk offline as well about some projects you could probably get involved with to help and continue this great work that you're doing. But thank you so much for sharing that, Mary, because you're doing amazing work, and I hope that it reaches more and more people, whether you decide to grow or whether you decide to franchise or whether you decide to actually just go to New Mexico and help those there. Anyone watching, please do like and subscribe to Mary. We'll leave her details and connections links below in the description. Please do get in touch. Mary, is there any other way that people can get in touch with you if they like your service, they want to get to know you a bit more and understand what you offer? Where can they find you?
Yeah, so we, because of how the internet works, our website, Discover Pathwaze, we spell Pathwaze just a little different. Discover's the normal way, but Pathwaze is PATHWAZE.com and versus YS. And
keeping it cool.
Yeah. Because it was taken, because Discover, the normal spelling was taken, but actually it fits us. So I really actually like that we changed it. But at the end of the day, that you can reach out via that. And when you hit our support button, one of us is answering it. And it's just fantastic. I have to say, when you put yourself out into the universe, it really is true. The people you're supposed to get, you get. And the families that are supposed to come to you and the organizations do. And we're always a little surprised at the coincidence, of which you and I are that. Like, I don't know why and how we connected, but I just believe in that. And I thought, okay, you know what? Whoever's supposed to reach out to us is going to find us. And then we're going to do good stuff together.
That's amazing. And it's there's a common thread of this whole podcast where we're meeting amazing people, doing amazing things, and we're able to connect them to do even better things. And that's the idea, really. There's no real agenda here for us to be like, oh, we're right wing, left wing, or anything like that. We want to be just supportive to humanity. And I feel just having these conversations is a start, and just hope that, the amazing work that you're doing, Mary, continues. So thank you so much for joining us today. I wish we had more time to speak.
Me too.
Would you come back in a year or maybe 6 months time to just let us know how it's going on, whether you decide to go down the sort of franchise route or to New Mexico, or where is our next?
Of course, because you're part of my buddy system now. So whether you like it or not.
I love it. Well, Mary, you've been absolutely charming and amazing to listen to. You've got such a phenomenal story that I'm sure others listening will resonate with, and hopefully, take the jump of, if they're getting that internal voice going on, to make the change, and hopefully don't wait till they get a brick. But yeah, you've been amazing. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the podcast episode today. We do ask you to like, subscribe, turn on all bell notifications, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.
Bye.